Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. We have Tim Alexander here for a major update. And I did a little riff for him, which, of course, I'm a barber shopper. Most people don't know that. We'll someday do some barbershop things, probably pre-record them so we can play it on the show. I can sing both lead and baritone or bass because I've got a range. Occasionally, depending on the day, I'll even do tenor. I used to do a lot of tenor when I was younger, but of course as time goes on and your vocal cords get stretched and your hormone levels get stretched because you're taking lots of nutraceuticals, you got a range and hopefully a little sense of humor too, because barbershoppers are a bit of hams. And maybe I can sing the first line, but you got good news, good news, good news. Not Tim Alexander is here. There you go. Well, I think that what we have is, the problem is the good news is there's lots of good people, even in our agencies that we think are bad, like CIA and the federal government and even bureaucrats, that are holding back the small number of maniacs that have got the levers of power. Things would be considerably worse if it wasn't for no kidding. Well, I caught myself defending John Kerry, which I thought I'd never do in this lifetime, because the Israelis were disrespecting him so much. I actually had to stand up and say, "Hey, just a second now. John Kerry, as incompetent as he is, and he looks like Lurch from the Addams Family, he is trying to stop a slaughter of Palestinian children. Come on, Israel."
He said, "I killed 13 Palestinian kids today." There's a picture of him with a 50 caliber sniper rifle, which is
my. If you know what a 50 caliber, when it hits a little body, does.
The bullet actually is still picking up speed for the first mile because it's stabilizing in flight. But 13 kids, what a brave man, Yeah.
Well, actually, do you know where his hell is? He gets to go to sniper hell, where they continue to blow his head off every 25 minutes. He has to search around and find the body parts of his head, and he's resurrected so that he can be shot again. That's his hell he's going to.
Well, I don't really know what his hell will be like, but
it'll be bad. I'm using humor here, but it's going to be very bad. I mean, I would not want to go where this guy's going because it's going to be obscene.
Well, I wouldn't want to go where our politicians are going because the U.S. politicians are sacrificing Palestinian children's lives to Zionist groups to get reelected, and I definitely wouldn't want to.
You mean that actually their election is painted in the bodies of children with telegenic good-looking children with the back of their brains blown out? You got to be kidding.
Yeah, and that's you paraphrased Netanyahu, and only a total psychopath like him would make such a statement and actually think that he was
right. That's why we're real journalists, citizen journalists. We're not the so-called talking heads or info babes or people that so-called have different degrees. They're on the lying news network, I call it the cartoon news network, the vomit network or MSNBC, the false news network, which is the best of the lot, believe it or not, Fox. They're so bad. The longer you watch these stations, the lower your IQ drops. It's literally, they actually should have kind of like a warning, just like they do in alcohol bottles. This can cause brain damage. How about watching these new news media will lower your geopolitical IQ 1 point per hour?
I had all kind of trouble the last few days with my internet service provider because a month ago I took my cable boxes back, the TV boxes back, and they didn't take it off my bill, and then they screwed up my service, and I was without phone service for a couple of days. But anyway, I no longer watch television. I will watch occasionally a movie over Netflix on the computer. I have a couple TVs. I don't have service for them. I need to buy a decoder box, I suppose, so I can watch local news, but I don't even like to watch that. And a lot of people are perceiving this, and I'm talking more and more people that no longer are watching television, that it is so blatantly politicized. It's just propaganda, and it's always, propaganda that falls in with what the Zionists and the globalists want.
I call it propaganda. How's that? Is that even better?
Anymore.
Propaganda? It's the agenda that's propped up in front of you, and you're told like a little robot where they take a SIM card out of your brain and pop in the geopolitical SIM card of the geopolitical Zion-Nazis and tell you that America should be supplying bombs and munitions to Israel 10 days ago, even though they didn't request it because they need that bombs to make sure they can continue the slaughter. I'm thinking,
the U.S. government condemned the shelling of the U.S. school, which was packed with about 3,500, mostly women and children.
But it's American munitions. We paid for it.
Told them to go there, and they bombed it several times. And,
right.
Of course, killed at least 20 people and wounded an enormous number. But we still gave them, we still are restocking their ammunition stockpiles, and we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. It's disgusting, and I'll tell you, if you surveyed the American people, I don't think the majority would even remotely agree with doing that. But we don't control our government anymore. The bankers, the Zionists, and so forth do. The American people don't control anything anymore. And that's,
it's sad, isn't it?
Amnesty of Obama's, there's a good article, Amnesty, the Third American Coup. That is, the first coup was the murder of President Kennedy, then 9/11, and Amnesty will be the one that helps to try to finish this off. Because it's not just children coming in; they're letting in enormous numbers of adults, which are gang members, the MS-13. Those
by the way, you'll have more
crazy,
time today,
so
Tim.
Evil, they hunt cops, and they hunt cops' families.
Exactly. Now, Tim, we talked about this off air, but we're going to give you more time today because we have a smaller report from Chris to deliver today on Fukushima and NRC with the seismic reports. The situation is that you're right. These kids are coming in. They're going to be hunting cops in Phoenix and Los Angeles and San Diego and elsewhere. They're going to be.
They're in Ohio,
and their families, by the way.
It's all 50 states.
But by the way, when these kids come in here and they decide that they're going to target you, they don't just kind of say, "Well, we're going to come to your home and try to kind of raid you at night." They try to get your little girl on her way to school.
Oh yeah. Okay. And they tell the police officers and the mayors and so forth, "That's what we're going to do to you."
Right.
But I have to tell you, I know.
I know what I would do if I got any of those kind of threats. You see, I would be putting together an APC with a bunch of our boys together.
You don't have to worry.
And I would go down and I'd clean out the rat's nest.
There is a city that I know of in the Midwest, not that far from where I live, that is predominantly of a European ethnic culture. I'm not going to go into great details because I don't want to embarrass anybody there. But they also have a lot of Hispanic people there now in the last few years because of a chicken factory. Anyway, a processing factory. Anyway, they had a senior official from L.A., a police department, speak to their officers privately off the record, and I'm getting this feedback from an officer that was there.
Right.
And he said, when MS-13 moves in, you're going to have to do a lot of things that are illegal, and they will target you and your families, particularly the ones that won't cooperate with them, and it's going to be a whole new, very brutal world for you.
Well, it's really actually pretty straightforward. You have a civilian militia that goes into their facilities and cleans them out.
A very short lifespan.
Well, let's put it this way. I was in emergency department back in 1978-80 at the University of Calgary General, which is a big emergency department. They cover a huge territory. And we had a sniper, basically we called the vigilante in downtown Calgary. If you saw a crime in progress, like a rape or breaking in a window, he was a crack shot. I mean, he could probably put a bullet at 150 yards on the end of a pin. And let me tell you, that vigilante took down a lot of criminals about to rape or break through stores or rob people on the street. They didn't live very long. That we're back, and Tim, I want you to repeat that last statement about the what Obama is doing to try to prevent a military coup. And you mentioned also something interesting. About 2 years ago, when the senior member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff went to Obama at the White House late in the evening.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff went to the White House in the middle of the night because we in Israel were getting ready to attack Iran, and of course Russia really put its foot down. But the middle-ranking officers involved in the key commands basically told the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, no. Bottom line, no. And he went to the White House in the middle of the night and told Obama that, and that stopped it. Now, what I have read, and I find this very shocking because it's exactly what the communists and the Nazis did. Right. Obama is putting key people in as XOs, executive officers, in key commands, military officers who are actually CIA agents, as well as military officers, so that they can arrest and spy on the generals and admirals in charge of the key commands. And the real power in the military lies in several key commands, of course, the nuclear forces and so forth.
Right.
And what the communists always did, they had a political officer who was always right behind the commanding officer and could arrest or shoot the commanding officer. The Nazis did something somewhat similar. And this is designed to prevent a coup. Things are now getting so bad in this country and so out of control that a lot of people in the military, they're saying, what's going on? I mean, why are we allowing this? And they're literally destroying our country, and they are.
Here's what I think is going to be the blowout. If one or more events causes Israel to start really going crazy with the Samson option, in other words, deciding that they're going to preemptively attack Syria and Iran, which they want to do. We've given them all the weapons, the long-range tanker bombers, the GB-54 bunker buster super nukes that can hit places like the centrifuge systems in the Cool Mountain area, or the deep bunker buster nukes that can hit some of the other facilities, when they can't get them all. I mean, the Iranians are smart. They have a lot of what we call false sites that from a satellite, you'd think it was a site for a centrifuge, and it's nothing. It's just prepared to look like it's from space.
I had lunch with one of Israel's top generals one time in Long Beach. There were three of us. A buddy of mine who was chairman of head of a American Aerospace Design Bureau, myself. I was a consultant to him. And this general, he was, I won't mention his name, but he was one of Israel's top generals, let's put it that way. And we're eating in this large restaurant by the Long Beach airport. And it's a single-story restaurant, but it's a fairly high ceiling and it's quite large. And this was before the first Gulf War. And he says, we can find all of Saddam's Scud missiles, and we can take them out. I said, really? I said, look around you. Now, if I had a little bit of money, I could put some things in the ceiling of this, some lead in the ceiling that the most advanced X-ray satellites wouldn't be able to peer in. And his eyes kind of opened. Oh, you know about that, And I said, how many Al-Hussein, which is really what the modified Scuds that Saddam had, and cruise missiles, do you think you could put in here? I said, you can make the walls so they would slide open or knock down, pre-survey the launch sites. You could roll them out and fire them up in a couple of minutes. And I said, you really think you can find all that stuff? And he said, And I said, if you bring them in pieces and assemble them, you could take your time to do it, and your recon wouldn't identify. Oh, I mean, here's a problem that people make when and military people make this problem, and they have to guard against it, is they know what they've got, and they feel so good about their capacities. They forget the other guy has a brain, too. And he has capacities, and he knows pretty much has a pretty good idea what you can do. So he's working overtime to do an end run around what you can do to him. And
that's what the Russians have done, is retooled their military to completely neutralize anything we can do to them, and we can have our lights punched out by Russia and their allies I mean, Iran has been preparing for 25 years to take on America. They have a drone program basically equivalent to ours.
Well, what they really have that's scary, they don't need nukes, and they may have a few, or may not, but what they have is advanced biological weapons, because they took over, in effect, the Russian, and I always mispronounce it, you always correct me,
biopreparat
program, which, they hired many of their top scientists 20-some years ago and brought them in. And, I mean, you're talking about some really deadly stuff. But Ebola, for instance, is a genetically engineered virus.
Yeah, this latest version, has all the characteristics of a super plague. It's one flight away from blowing out our cities.
I linked several stories to it. The World Health Organization is now waking up to the fact that we're only a couple weeks away from...
Well, the reason why they're waking up is
catastrophe globally.
Tim, I found this out from my sources. The reason why they're finally letting it leak out to the news is they've actually been preparing for months for Ebola isolation centers here in America. And Dave Hodges has an article up on his site, which I posted up earlier this week. The fact is, they are already ready. They have the laws passed in 2005-06, where every nation on earth has passed over to the United Nations and the World Health Organization control of all the health care and all the military of every nation on earth. They're all passed over. So if it's any kind of airborne super plague, all the WHO has to do is declare it such, and the UN literally takes over our military and our medical systems and our borders. It's over. It happens like it's already, the law's already passed by our government.
They can try.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you're right. And really, historically, the government has always had the most incredible powers that the federal government and state government have in the last 100 years have to do with pandemics. And those are legitimate powers, because if you have a mass-spreading pandemic, there are steps that any government has to do to contain the spread.
But you know, when they have these powers, but when I asked the FBI and CDC directors for bioterrorism at a private dinner, this is October of 2001, March of 2001, this is 6 months before 9/11. Not only did they leak out the fact that we're going to do a war game simulation with nukes going off in New York City, the release of anthrax, which later did happen, the release of super plagues of other bugs that could happen as well. And they said that, and I asked them specifically, because we did a simulation in downtown Denver at the Federal Center. We did a simulation on a supercomputer, NOAA supercomputer time, up in Boulder, Colorado, of a simulated super plague that would arrive from Cairo, Egypt to Oklahoma City. We did live simulations, Operation Top Off in Dark Winter, at the Performing Arts Center in downtown Denver in the 17th Avenue Mall, which is these big high buildings. We had a sprayer out the second floor window, and guess what? We killed everybody. And we had the FBI and CDC involved. We had the hazmat teams from University of Colorado Infectious Disease.
The projected spread of disease.
Projected spread means, and the things that I suggested specifically to tell them what to do, they didn't do any. No chain of custody, no isolation,
I've said
nothing in the aircraft, nothing to...
not the other sometimes.
And there's an angel there with his wings spread and his white garments on, and he's there with a big ledger, and one of these big ledger things. Looks like something out of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, only this building with the big windows there. And outside, instead of snow, there's fluffy clouds. And Jesus is just popping in to see how the accountant's doing to calculate out where America's putting its money. And there's one ledger that says, American weapons, depots, storage site, Israel, access, Israeli government, target, Palestinian children. And I think Jesus would not be happy with the fact that we, Americans, including Christians, are paying for munitions that we just so happen to give to the Israelis to kill Palestinians. Now,
and Palestinian children.
And Palestinian children, because they're not prosecuting this to try to stop the rocket attacks. They're doing, like, for example, and you have this article posted up at the UN Relief Agency spokesperson breaking into tears. And this is not the first time that these idiots, the Israelis, have done this. United Nations Relief and Workers Agency, UNRWA, provides aid to the Palestinians in Gaza, broke into tears during a TV interview in the aftermath of Wednesday's fatal attack on a UN-run school. Now, I don't know what they try to spin. The Israelis can spin this. There's no spinning it. Opening your mouth digs a hole deeper. just shut the heck up. 20 people were reportedly killed after the shell hit the UN RWA school in Jabalia, Gaza, where 3,300 people have been taking refuge. Like, excuse me, the Israeli government told 17 times exactly the location, and they said, yes, make sure we have coordinates to make certain that school is blown up. We're going to get them human shields hiding in school, UN school.
I call him 666, Netanyahu, is deliberately doing genocidal things, not simply because he wants to kill as many Arabs as he can, because they've been down this road before. But this time is much, much worse than the last time.
But he's not just killing the Palestinians, he's killing our conscience. In America, if people don't revile, if people don't revolt, if people don't impeach Obama, if they don't get the military to do something like do a coup to take over the damn government, we're literally standing by and saying, hey, sure, no problem. When I file my tax reform, make sure there's on the bottom of the ledger how many Palestinian kids or Iranian kids or Israeli kids, by the way, because once this war starts on for serious, it doesn't matter if you've got Jewish relatives in Israel. Everybody's going to die.
To wipe out his people.
Right.
His strategy will wipe out his people, and I've said that for some years now, and I'm screaming it now. But the Israelis, some are hearing it, but I don't know what they can do about it. But I
know what they can do about it. They can grow some cojones, and they can impeach him in the government. I'm sure Zippy Livni and these other characters in the Israeli government.
And remember, there are a lot of Saudi Air Force officers and Army officers who aren't their Royal Highness, the Prince so-and-so and Prince, maybe 5,000 princes, but the bulk of the Saudi armed forces, the bulk of the Omani armed forces, Jordanian armed forces, etc., are simple Arab Muslims who are hearing about all these women and children being killed. And
well, look at the Turks. The Turks are reacting.
Problems with the Islamic faith and how women have to wear, in some of these countries, have to wear veils and all this. I got real problems with that. Still, from their perspective, they're safeguarding the honor of the women. Now, I think that's a very screwed up way to think, but okay. But guarding women and children is important to them. And I think what he's doing is he is so in their face with this. He's trying to get this thing to really go into Lebanon and to spread all over the Middle East, because he's wanted this this general Middle Eastern war for years now. He wants to nuke his enemies. He wants to be the king of the Middle East.
Tim, as you know, as a
World War.
Tim, he doesn't have the military forces to do so or the supplies. And here's what I've been told from all your experts like Michael Connolly from U.S. Justice Foundation. The articles of impeachment are sitting there like Damocles' sword over Obama's head. The Democrats released information to kind of spoof it away that, to try to make it a Democratic kind of leak, to say, ha, 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 Boehner's not going to do it. Of course, Boehner's lifespan in terms of the Republican Party is short. And he's not necessary for the impeachment.
Who knows what they
doesn't matter. And Michael's told me this, okay, that there's enough Republicans, but they're probably going to hold off until after the November election. But it means before then, and both the Republicans and Democrats voted, I think there was almost like 180 of each, this week, for a resolution that if Obama does not come to them for further expansion of war in the Middle East or supplies to Israel or whatever, he's going to be impeached immediately. That's already done. That's done this week. So what I see happening is, in the next few months, Obama's half-life is like butter on a hot day on the shelf. He's not going to survive this geopolitically. The only thing he can do is declare martial law by creating a crisis that's so horrendous that he has to declare martial law. And if he thinks he can prosecute martial law against 94 million armed Americans, he's delusional. He's literally taken too many mushrooms, too much LSD, too much smoke. He's just not with the real program.
Extremely compromised spiritually.
Right, but it doesn't matter how compromised. Because the people trying to push him to do this, they're compromised. Their neurons are not connecting. You're not going to do this. If you poured every army on the planet into America to try to crush the American people, the pushback would be unbelievable. Well, you know what the Japs said in War II? If we landed behind every blade of grass, would be an American with a rifle. 94 million armed Americans with many billions of bullets Not millions, billions.
See, that's why they did the Sandy Hook false flag. They spent 2 years and the millions of dollars to set that up, and supposedly...
And now it's come on, it's also a false flag.
A week and a half before Christmas. It was all lies, but it backfired on them. They're so out of touch with normal people, they thought it was going to work. Instead, everybody went out and bought every gun and every bit of ammunition you could buy. I couldn't even find shotgun shells, you know? Yeah. And so these guys, they don't think like most people. If you want World War III, if you want, if you're the head of Israel and you're sitting there and you want to get a war going that could wipe out your entire country, you don't think like normal people. You don't just have a worm in your brain. You've got a demon in your brain.
Well, the problem is people don't want to posit that. You see, the average so-called rational geopolitical or political science or philosophy student in college in America or the West isn't going to postulate the idea of dissociative identity disorder, multiple personalities, and demonic possession or oppression. They're just not going to believe it could happen.
Well,
they don't
I'm
think.
Sorry, but just because you ignore it doesn't mean it's not true.
Well, I'll give you an example. I just went out last night with my wife and we saw the movie Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And, of course, Caesar at the end kind of recognizes that just siding with apes doesn't mean all apes are good. Some
was that
apes
a good
are bad.
Movie, by the way?
Very good movie. And it had some philosophy behind it. The philosophy was there's good humans and bad humans. There's good apes and bad apes. And the problem is, you see, the world is being run by mainly bad apes. People that are out of their mind, there's a portion of their soul that's missing. And the rich people, the powerful people, the people who have knowledge. For example, I love the statement by Einstein, I keep quoting recently, that the world will not be destroyed by evil people, but by people who know better and see them and do nothing about it.
And you know, he hit the nail on the head. Because they are very, very few, and we are very, very many.
But when we do our statements like this, we're basically making sure that that special forces officer that's guarding the president has extra zip ties in his back pocket. We're making certain that they have extra couple clips around in case they have somebody trying to take out our security teams or trying to protect people to make sure that we can't arrest the president or other people who need to be brought to a military tribunal for crimes against the nation. When we have situations like the Joint Chiefs of Staff fretting at night because Israel could start a thermonuclear war, why? Why do we allow our military leaders to have insomnia because Israel now has been given all the weapons to prosecute and start World War III?
Because they blackmail and bribe all of our congressmen and senators.
That's insane. It's insane.
And we
have
to allow
to
that.
Right. And we'll be dragged screaming into a thermonuclear conflict with Russia, which neither of us need or want or have.
What?
If you're going to...
We did manage to have Chris connected, but we didn't get his report yet. Chris, quick questions. You've been very busy, Chris, doing reports on South Korea and other nations that have basically from the same contractors that built the Mark I reactors in Japan. They have seismic zone problems. They're actually in a more compressed even area in terms of surface area. The cyclonic movement of air actually makes it more dangerous for Seoul and Southern Korea if they ever got a release in their nuclear reactors, and they rely a lot on nuclear power because they don't have hydroelectric there. Korea is one of the most nuclear power-dependent countries in the world. And they're also one of the largest shipbuilding places, so they need a lot of power, a lot of automobile factories, a lot of television. LG, which are really good televisions and computer monitors, they're all made in South Korea. So it's giant industry.
They are striving to be world class.
World class, and they work like these are workomaniacs. These people like seriously striving to be top notch. But the problem is you need a lot of power, and unfortunately that power is nuclear with old style reactors with the same stupid designs as they put in the Mark I reactor. The first question is, would they put a proper release system for the hydrogen that builds up in the torus, which we know Japan didn't do. We did do in America, but the Japanese put a FOD system in. Number two, do they do seismic testing like Jasko asked to actually check to see if the plants can withstand core maintenance and test by ultrasound or X-ray all of their welds and seals and tubes and pipes and everything to make sure that if they've been cleaning them, they don't break through like they did in that plant outside Chicago where they literally took a brush and went right through the side of a pipe near Chicago. Remember that one a few years ago?
Yep.
And, in other words, have they dealt with the real issues that are going to cause problems. And I know that I like to put it kind of like they say, the story is you put lipstick on a pig. They give a radiation detector at the bottom of the fish counter in the grocery stores in Seoul. But the fact is, they're trying to tell people, well, we not sell you Fukushima fish. It's good Korean fish. Well, excuse me, those cyclonic currents do carry from northeastern Japan back toward Korea. In fact, 22 provinces within 3 weeks to 6 weeks in China detected very high levels of radiation right after Fukushima Daiichi. So it's not just going from west to east, okay? So if people want to start getting a life here, realize it's poisoning that area of Eastern Asia as well. Shanghai, China, South Korea. And locally, if they have a big reactor breakdown because it was a big seismic event, or if they just have some mechanical thing breakdown because the things are dang old, have they actually dealt with the things that will fix it? Well, I don't see any moves whatsoever to fix the problem in Fukushima. It's going to continue to cause massive burps of radiation from criticality. It's going to continue releasing massive amounts of tritiated hydrogen superheated steam at multi-atmosphere pressures. It'll drive out steam tubes under the ocean floor and back toward the islands of Honshu and the northern island. What's it called again? Hokkaido. And as a result, it's also connected to the same magma and fault-like system that actually is recharging the magma chamber of Mount Fuji, which blows about every 176 to 190 years. And that chamber is refilling because it's getting ready to blow. People don't know that there's been a 500% increase in 5-level earthquakes or higher since March 11th. And whether or not the event happened in Fukushima was an artificially created tsunami, it doesn't really matter. There's going to be big dang earthquakes that are going to happen. They're going to make reactors, including OI and others, extremely unlikely to be able to maintain containment because they were already damaged. So the big question is, has Japan done anything substantial other than saying at the end of the year, and this is your latest article you sent me, they plan on having the ALPS decontamination system operational. They keep, it's almost like telling us, like, you know, we're going to be better by the end of the year, and they're having a chronic alcoholic tell you they've cut back on booze. They're down to a fifth of vodka before they get their feet out of bed.
Cutting way back.
They're cutting back, man, I'll tell you. But the thing is, you do not want them to smoke a cigarette because they have what's called inflammatory or explosive breath. Are they actually, is there a real possibility the ALPS decon system with these new tanks is going to work? They don't have tents to capture the air venting. They don't have a way to stop the sea venting. They don't have any way of even monitoring the cracks in geology in the ground. They don't know where the corium is. They've not done muon scanning of the ground to know where the corium is or what isotope ratio is going on. They have done nothing to prevent subsidence from continuing. In fact, the more that they mess around with this water and this ice wall, the more subsidence they have, especially as we head into the fall and winter, where the rains and then the snow makes it turn into much more dangerous mush. And they have around the site, of course, all these wires and everything where even these what we call devil rats are chewing on the wires. They had a truck a year or so ago where they had these radioactive rats literally chewing on the power lines for one of their backup pumps. Remember that?
Yeah, and just remember that place is still have areas that are too radioactive for people to work in for any length of time. So, and I keep on thinking that we they need this and they need that. You know what? Actually, we all need that to happen, don't we? Because we're all
what I'm surprised at is that
so we
knowing
all
Obama,
need that to happen.
Yeah, knowing Obama figures all you have to do is spray down the U.S. Treasury Department printing machine to hand over to get a little stamp on it from the Federal Reserve, which is our globalist controller idiots. They don't just give a few $100 billion to Japan to so-called fix-it and contract to American contractors who created the screw up in the first place. In fact, it turns out that the kitty litter damage down at the WIP reactor system in New Mexico is the same idiot company that actually set up a lot of the things going on in Japan at Fukushima. Interesting. Hey?
We need a fresh look. I think we need a fresh look, and the same group of collective wit needs to be different. And
new contractors, new oversight. New oversight. And by the way, we have a new director of the NRC that basically she is useless. She has not made a public statement giving us a statement about the seismic safety of any existing plants where the reports have come back. We see no reports about what they're going to do to fix it, or extreme weather like tornadic activity, or just power lines going out from extreme weather. We don't have any reports whatsoever about the danger, even though Walmart, with their inside data, is now moving to do major tests for up to several hundred miles around the New Madrid fault system for all the Walmart stores, which they're going to independent power through using hydrogen fuel engines or other means of having their own independent power source, and being ready to say, will the building withstand an earthquake? Will it fall over?
I guarantee you they won't withstand it because they're concrete block construction, and they can't stand a lateral load, which means that the roof will collapse in when you get about 5 or 6 point 5.
Yeah, in other words, you're exactly right. I knew, Tim, you'd come up with that. That's really clever, because I know enough about construction engineering that none, I mean, not some, but none of the Walmart buildings will withstand even a relatively moderate earthquake.
You can put gunite on them with heavy steel wiring and make it a little bit better, but basically even that won't take too much of a lateral load. They were not designed. They were designed to be built cheaply and fast, and at a low, a very low cost was the key. And they simply will not stand up to any kind of lateral load. They will crumble.
We already know they don't stand up to tornadoes. You've seen that.
No.
So actually, what they should, it's actually kind of humorous what they call it Walmart. It's not W-A-H-L Mart, it's W-A-L-L Mart, because the walls will come crumbling down like Jericho.
You don't want to be in one when the walls come down and all those steam girders collapse.
Right, and the girders in the ceiling, lots of weight. Plus air conditioners, or if some of them have solar panels up there, a lot more weight there. What's happening here in America? Anything coming from, who's the current director? She's unmemorable. What's her first name? McLaughlin, isn't it?
McFarlane.
McFarlane, that's it, McFarlane.
Yeah, but what's going on is, some of the ideas that need to have actually be implemented are being somewhat implemented right now. It takes a long time, because I just sent you an article a little while ago about the actual garage where you keep all the portable equipment that's necessary to mitigate the consequences of an accident.
Which plant was that now? That's one with the Watts Bar plant, right? Is that the one you're talking about?
Right. Yes, Watts Bar at the Tennessee Valley. And as Tim was absolutely correct about block walls having zero tolerance or to be able to withstand a seismic event, this is poured concrete structure, reinforced concrete. It's a bunker. It's a bunker garage. And this is where
that's good. They're finally doing some things, but but it may be too little late. I mean, if Walmart's worried about their buildings falling down, they probably know something that at these private meetings that we don't, or other agencies aren't sharing with each other. One of the biggest things I found freaky about federal government is that the Navy, which controls U.S. Space Command, doesn't talk to the Air Force or talk to the ground-based military like the Army, or the CIA or DARPA doesn't talk to the NSA. Believe it or not, they have to spy on each other to find out what's really going on. That's how weird it is.
Bizarro world.
It is true.